Hey everyone, Jeff here, also known as the Revit Kid. Welcome to another episode of BIM After Dark Live. This is episode 48, believe it or not, 48. So we're coming up on episode 50, which is pretty wild. Today's episode, I have an awesome guest, and we're going to be talking about the Revit to Unreal Engine workflow. It's going to be really cool. I believe that Carl, our guest, is going to be using one of my models I sent him, which is pretty cool to see a model that I sent him go through the workflow. But then we're also going to talk about why and maybe some of the reasons you might want to use Unreal. So definitely stay tuned. It's going to be really cool. He's also going to be throwing on some VR headsets as long as nothing blows up on us, because this is a live stream. So stick around and definitely stay tuned for what's to come. I also wanted to mention that if you are new to this episode, or new to this channel, I should say, this is a weekly live stream where we talk about Revit, BIM, and any really associated software in the AEC industry. And if it is your first time here, make sure you subscribe to the channel here on YouTube. Hit the notification bell, hit the subscribe, so you know when we go live. This is typically every week, every Thursday, for almost a year now, which is pretty sweet. Before we jump into the content, I did want to thank our sponsor. Our sponsor is BIMbox. For those of you not familiar with what BIMbox is, they are a computer manufacturer. They make laptops and desktops for the AEC industry. The big difference about BIMbox the big difference from other laptops or desktops that you may be currently using right now, is that they have been designed and optimized for Revit. That's right. If someone asks you what's the best laptop or desktop for Revit, then I finally have an answer, because these literally have been designed for it. And if you don't believe me, you can go over to their website, and they have a benchmark where you can compare it to your desktop or your laptop as well. One little story I wanted to tell about BIMbox before we jump into it is they also look really good. If you haven't seen them, check out the website. Actually, let me pull up the little thing here. So check out the website and see especially the desktops, the design of the desktops. I'm actually in the process of sort of moving my office around here in the house, and I'm literally designing my desk around where the BIMbox is going to sit, because it looks so cool, and it's one of those things that you just don't want to hide back in the corner. So head on over to sales@bimboxusa.com. Email those guys, Buck and his crew, if you're interested. Let them know that you heard it here on the channel from me, and they'll hook you up. You can also head on over to bimbox.bimafterdark.com to find out more. So thank you, BIMbox. Thank you for sponsoring this episode, for sure. Before we jump in, I also wanted to remind you guys that we are live right now. So I will be checking the chat the entire time, and I fully encourage engagement. Ask questions, interrupt us, doesn't matter. I will be paying attention, and the reason I love doing these streams is because I get to talk to you. Speaking of, I'm going to introduce my guest right now. So Carl's going to come on screen here. Speaking of sort of the interactions between my audience and myself here on the live stream, Carl actually has been a pretty active commenter over a few episodes of the channel, and he actually submitted an idea to me. For those of you that don't know, I think I mentioned a couple episodes. If you head to submit.bimafterdark.com, there's a submission form if you have an idea and you want to be on the show. And Carl reached out, and long story short, we actually have a little bit of a history online, and I thought it was great. He mentioned Unreal as something that he's been into. And so without further ado, I will introduce Carl Gibson. What's up, Carl?
Hey, Jeff, how you doing?
All right. Thank you for coming on, and thank you for submitting an idea. It was pretty awesome to see that people were interested in submitting their own ideas and not me having to reach out for guests, which is pretty cool. But also that you were interested in Unreal, and it's one of those things that I think people out there are super interested in, the workflow and just in general, even the program itself. So thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's pretty exciting to be here. Yeah, it's kind of hard to ignore, like, even the 50 and 60-year-olds at the booths at the conventions. They're like, VR set? This is interesting. That's like the bet that I have. How many people older than 50 can I get in a VR headset?
Right.
So it's pretty intriguing to everybody to experience something like that.
Yes, I know when we, pre-pandemic, I'm sorry, guys. I just moved Carl's face a little, so don't freak out. That was me. I was making sure your whole head was in the stream. So pre-pandemic, we did a ton of VR meetings. It was really becoming almost a common practice for us. And it was really interesting to see because not everyone in the meeting will ever put the goggles on. There's some people that will just refuse to put them on, right? But it was always interesting to see like who in the room were the ones that enjoyed it the most, that got it right away, and it's a fascinating process. So
Who's courageous?
Cool. Yeah, exactly. I'm just reading some of the comments as we go here. We got some regulars. Beth Ann, welcome back. Creative things. We got Carl's on here commenting on, which is awesome.
Yep.
And Florida, we got some folks from England I saw there. Japan, hey, Ren from Japan. Thanks for joining us. Pretty cool. It must be, I don't even know, is it tomorrow morning in Japan? I don't even, right? It's a different day. So thanks for joining us live. Appreciate it. All right,
That's
so
awesome.
before we jump into content, and again, I want to encourage everyone to ask questions as we go along. Carl's got a bunch of great stuff lined up, pre-ready to go demo stuff. But we do encourage engagement and take us wherever direction you want. But I guess before, and Joe Buchek, hey Joe. Joe's actually a Connecticut native. What's up, Joe? He just asked if that was the Kimball Art Museum. And
yep, good eye.
You got it. Yep. Louis Kahn, good stuff. And we were actually just talking about our backgrounds and how mine is now a much darker background, and Carl's is not a real background, and it's because both of our offices are in complete disarray right now. So, oh, Australia, wow, cool, man, awesome. Oh, Ren said it's 9:30 in the morning, so it's actually nice and early in the morning the next day. For you,
all the time zones.
We're all over the place. Awesome. All right, so before we jump into the Unreal stuff, I guess real quickly, give folks a little background of who you are, maybe what you do professionally, how you got to, I guess to Unreal, and then some of the background on the Revit universe that you've been involved in, and I bet some people may recognize you from some of your endeavors that they may not even know.
Possibly. It'll be a tell as to how long they've been using Revit if they recognize me. So thanks for having me, Jeff. I'm Carl Gibson. I'm here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I started my endeavor with Revit 2005. Man, I should have thought it. I actually have the Revit 2006 purple and white manual in the room with me, but it's like back in a box.
Was that spiral bound?
No, it was not spiral bound. It's the
I remember one. I think it was 2008. I had some spiral bound one. It was a pretty wild book.
Yeah.
Maybe we printed it, and that's why. I don't know.
Possibly, yeah. But I've been using Revit ever since, and it's kind of how I've stayed in the industry. I'm a licensed architect. I use Revit for residential, commercial. And it's kind of I've been a BIM manager for large projects, large firms, small projects, things like that. Back in 2008, I started a blog, I guess you could call it, called Revit Tip of the Day. And that went on for a few years until Carl Bass sicked his lawyers on me, and then it became Creative Things. And Creative Things is the name of the studio that I run now out of my disarray of an office at my house. And over the last couple of years, I've started thinking about, like, in architecture, how do we communicate, and like what's the next step of communication? You've got renderings, you've got Twinmotion, you've got if you were like me, you actually rendered things directly in Revit before there was actually a really good, like, you had your computer running 48 hours straight to do that mental ray rendering.
Oh yeah, I remember in studio we used to have we would get pissed off because you have to go in and print, and there'd be signs all over the machines, and someone was in the lab and they, rendering, and you just wanted to pull the plug on them.
Yep. Well, sometimes nature does that for you. I've lost many renderings to lightning storms and power outages and stuff like that.
A processor overheating,
Yeah.
Fantastic.
But recently I started thinking about, well, what's that next level? Like, when you're talking to a client, you're looking at a flat image. Well, how do they know that space between the island in the kitchen and the stove is enough to have somebody, prepping food in the sink and pulling the turkey out of the oven at the same time?
Mm-hmm.
Well, VR was kind of the next step for that, because you can put them in an immersive environment, and you can actually, with your controllers, your brain can feel how wide that space is, or how tall a space is.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to explain without, for people who haven't been in VR, how immersive it is, and how you can actually, like, your body knows, is that a tall ceiling or a short ceiling?
Mm-hmm.
So that was the next step for me, really, in communicating to my clients this is what your space is going to look like. And we try to get that to them, really early in the process. So I started playing with, Twinmotion and Lumion had some very basic VR capabilities where you could put the headset on and kind of look around in a space. But I started looking at, actually, believe it or not, I started looking at Unity first because they were kind of tied in with Steam. I had a Steam, I have a Vive that I'm using, which is Steam HTC. But then I found that Unreal was just, and you'll see in the demonstration, it's so easy to get set up and go. They've worked really hard to make their templates basically work out of the box, with the exception of, as you'll see, when they tweak it and sometimes it doesn't. But most of the time it does work. And really what really kind of tipped me over the edge of going from, just staying in Twinmotion and Inkscape, which I think Inkscape has some of these features, but at the time it didn't, when I was looking at Unreal, was I wanted to be able to change materials and move things around. And you didn't have that functionality at the time. So I wanted something
interacting with the environment, right? The ability to interact with the environment. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. And does Inkscape have that now? I feel like I've heard that it does. I don't know.
No. So they're getting closer. And the views now you can associate. It's a lot easier to associate views to what you're seeing. So you can flip between design options, for example, much easier now. There's that, but you can't, there's no, and even in Twinmotion, there's still some extent of, you can change materials, but you can't, grab an object and move it. That's just not built into the VR platform and
right.
that they have. Right.
Yeah. So it's not as straightforward in Unreal to change materials and whatnot as it is to just like get VR working.
Right.
But with its blueprint system where you can literally code by nodes. So if you're familiar with Grasshopper or Dynamo, it's a very similar programming structure where you can actually program via nodes, and I can show a little bit of that. We won't get into actually creating blueprints, but I can kind of show you how that works and what that looks like behind the scenes in the engine.
Awesome. Why don't we do this then? Why don't we jump in and show the final product real quick, just so everyone can get a taste of what we're going through, and then maybe we'll work backwards and run through how you get there, because I think everyone is probably, maybe for those of you that aren't familiar with Unreal, maybe just want to see like what's the end goal here, and then from there maybe we'll work backwards and sort of talk about, okay, this was a Revit model, this is how we got there. How about
Absolutely.
that?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. So we're seeing your screen.
Perfect.
By the way, Carl is using an ultra wide, so I apologize everyone who has the cinematic screen on the top, but
I don't apologize for that. Everyone should have ultra wide. Why do you have a bar between your monitors? You don't want that.
Exactly right.
All right. So what we're seeing here, this is actually in Unreal Engine, and this is the final model that we're actually going to build a little bit later on. But this is what we're going to be trying to get to in the time slot that we have. And essentially, what I've done is I've started from a template and to create this. So I can just hit play here, and I don't know if you're hearing the desktop audio or not. There should be a. I need to run this into my headphones real quick. There we go. So this is essentially me using WASD to walk around a model, which if you've been watching Revit Kid BIM After Dark for a while, this might look familiar to you. The setting might look a little different. We have put it on a frozen lake in the middle of the tundra, but
not quite Connecticut, but it could be depending on the time of year. Yeah. Depending on the time of year, maybe.
Some things that you might notice is these are not the Revit materials. I've done material swaps. I've done some lighting. I've baked some lighting in. You will notice some things like, Jeff, I'm sure you noticed that this material probably shouldn't be there because you demolished that and made it into parts. And we'll get into some of those later on. But what I do want to show real quick is, so you can see that this is what Epic calls and Epic is the company that makes Unreal Engine. They call this a collaborative viewer template. So you have a couple different modes. You've got the fly mode, and I can fly way above the house, whatnot. I can go through walls and everything, or I can walk. So I've got some collisions set up so I can walk on the floors. I didn't set up collisions with the walls, but you can. So we can walk through the walls right now, which is really good for us. And then some of the nice things are there are commands, so you can actually create measurements. So I can create a measurement from like say here to the floor. It might be hard to see, but it's in centimeters because I didn't bother changing it to imperial. But then also, if there's things that can be moved, you can move objects. If you've created objects that can be moved, so you can make it like a horror scene where all the furniture's floating and the TV pops off the wall. But I can set all these things to be movable. So I think I made all that. But something that's really nice about this is that there's even a way that you can click on an object and it'll give you the actual BIM information that comes out of the model. And I'll show you where that's stored. I don't have that set up, but it's pretty simple to set up in the HUD. And then of course, you can do like a model on the table setup where you can spin it around. And then of course, the one that we're all looking forward to, let me see if I can get back inside here real quick. We'll see if this works. Everybody cross their fingers here.
Yeah, right.
I'm gonna hit play. All right. Now I should be able to. Well, I didn't plug the headset in. So I'm doing a wireless headset, by the way. So actually, so while that starts up, it's going to take a second to start up. But are there any questions yet, Jeff, while that starts up?
So Joe Buchek did ask what headset you're using, and I think you answered that with you're using the HTC Vive or using the Pro, the new one. What version?
I am not using the Pro. I bought mine before Pro was a thing. I'm cool like that. But I did buy the wireless kit that goes with it, and it is a complete game changer. It makes it makes all the difference in the world. I'm going to restart.
Do you notice a lag at all on the with the wireless kit, or?
I don't. There's actually no noticeable difference between wireless and wired when you have a good graphics card and good setup. And I had this running on a GTX 780. Okay. Right, I've got a 2080 now, but I had a GTX 780 and it was running fine. You do need a beefy processor to keep up with it and a good motherboard with some fast PCI slots. But it's negligible, to say the least. Nice. Okay, we're going to try this again real quick. Let's see. Right.
Let's give it a whirl.
I'm going to hit VR. We're going to see Steam VR pop up here hopefully in just a second.
And so that's the original Vive then. This is pre-pro.
Yeah, this is the original Vive.
Pre-pro.
Yeah. All right. So this is what I was talking about with it possibly not. But let's give it one more shot here. Everybody clap your hands, tell Vive, here we go, Steam. Come on, Steam, you want to work? We'll see if it, we'll wait for it to pop up here, make sure it can find the headset. I am curious, Jeff, maybe we can poll the audience and see who has worked in VR before.
Yeah, sure. We do have one question while we're doing it too. So yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, who here has used goggles and uses them? It'd be interesting to see how many folks out there are sort of prospecting the idea or actually experience and trying to find out more. So feel free to in the chat to let us know that. Somebody's asking, Joe, I think is still asking, or is it Pedro? Both Pedro and Joe are asking if Unreal allows you to export a standalone version of your scene, like a lot of the other, like the Enscapes and the Twin Motions and stuff do.
Repeat that last question one more time.
Does Unreal give you the ability to export a standalone scene? So if you wanted to export an EXE and send it to a client or something like that.
Yes, absolutely. And VR packages are usually 500 megabytes at minimum.
Not bad.
So,
not bad.
And I think when Twinmotion started, they had an issue where when you exported the Twinmotion VR scene, it was exporting the entire engine. So it was like an 800 megabyte.
800.
I haven't done that.
You mean 16 gigs?
Oh, was it really? Yeah. So I guess
some of the
size of the scene.
Yeah, depending on the scene, but it does export out. I think it still exports out the whole Unreal Engine with it, so they're gigantic. Yeah.
Wow.
Although they're working on some other ways to do that, but I forgot how much I'm allowed to say.
All right, so here we go. All right, so I'm going to turn on the VR view so you can see it actually starts up in Steam Home, so you can see all the games that I play and the friends that I play with. I'm going to hit play here. We're going to see if this works one more time. I'm going to go into VR mode. And it doesn't look like it wants to hook onto it. So we might have to skip the VR.
That's all right.
The VR part for now. Maybe we can get it working in the demo later on. So we'll set that aside for now. Oh, perfect. You know what I can do? I can actually, we can do a VR preview, and you can at least see me sitting inside. You know what? I might be in the.
So it looks like quite a few folks have. It looks like we have a half and half for folks who are saying they have used it before and have not used it before, which is pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
Let's see. Some people use a Rift. ACAD Gatsu just said change the play button to VR play. I don't know what that means. Yeah, maybe he's an Unreal guy or a girl. Sorry, could be.
Well, yeah, and also, so that wasn't set up because of something else that wasn't set up. It wasn't letting me do it. It still isn't. So we might have to come back to that.
That's all right. We'll come back to it the demo. So then just from what you showed us there, that the way that you moved things around and some of the things. So I guess before we go through the process, then let's talk a little bit about with Unreal. To me. And correct me if I'm wrong, or give me sort of maybe your thoughts on this. I see the biggest benefits, other than the fact that you're given the entire Unreal Engine to work with, because I know Twinmotion and any other programs, they're only allowing you to use whatever they allow you to use as far as the engines, the power of the engine. So ray tracing, some of these graphic things, right? But to me, I guess the biggest thing is the flexibility, right? It seems 100%. like you can pretty much customize and create and do pretty much anything you want beyond sort of your knowledge of the program. Is that sort of what am I right in assuming that?
Absolutely. And if you're programming minded, and you that's kind of where I came from, is when you have a packaged program like Inkscape, Twinmotion, Lumion, V-Ray for rendering, things like that, you're limited to what the developers of that program have said. This is what we think you're going to really need for creating things. Mm-hmm. Unreal as an engine is essentially, hey, here's a sandbox. Here's all the tools that we know how to provide with you. You go nuts. Mm-hmm. And I mean, you've seen the movies and the games and that have been produced in Unreal. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can do that with ArcViz, with AEC. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of what you're capable of doing, and willing to spend time doing to figure that out. So, hey, look, we got it working.
There we go.
I just needed to talk long enough. So I don't have controllers because of the way the VR preview works. But you can see, I can look around.
Mm-hmm. And then you have access to whatever you've set up as far as actions and like you were moving the chairs around. Right. If you had controllers, you would have the same access that you gave yourself in the other environment.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yep. 100%. So, and if it looks like it's short, it's because I'm sitting. If I were actually standing up, it would be.
That's a good, awesome. So before we jump into how you got there now, right? So I think it's great to see, there's my model I sent you a few days ago, or maybe in the weekend. I don't remember when I sent it to you, but there it is in Unreal, which is pretty cool. But I guess, again, sort of talking about the pros and cons. So the pros are that you have this unlimited flexibility sandbox, right? Because of that, or in general, what would you say are the cons of using this process? What are the
exact same thing? It's the exact same thing. It's literally, so it's like going into a design prompt and the client says, we don't have a budget, we don't have a site, and we don't know what our style is. And you're like, okay, I guess I can give you something. And then you spend all this time like narrowing it down because they say, well, that's not exactly what we want, but they don't tell you what you want. Mm-hmm. So you jump into the sandbox and you've got all these tools. Like you have 3 different ways that you can make a VR, scene in Unreal, and you have to choose, okay, what's going to be the best one. So I actually spent a lot of time trying to figure out, do I want to start from scratch and build my own VR ponds, or do I want to start with a collab viewer so that you can see the functionality of that? Because I think that's really cool. So by the way, this collab viewer, you can actually host a session where other people can remote in, and
That's
you can
awesome.
actually see things all together. And this is free in, with Unreal. You can just set up your own. I wish we could demo that, but
That's all
here
right.
we are.
One day we'll set it up ahead of time and we'll try and get that to work. I'll pull up my
There you
Vive
go.
and we'll try and jump into the same model.
So
But that's a great
I would,
point, and that's
I would say the con is pretty much that
yeah,
it can be very overwhelming.
it's a double-edged sword, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what I've found on my own too, and that's why I wanted to point that out, because I think what I've done over the last year here on the show is sort of showed a lot of these options, and I think this is just another one, but talking about the pros and cons of each, and to me that is the big pro of Unreal is what you just said. It's almost unlimited flexibility and customization of a virtual scene, whether you're using it for videos, renderings, or VR, but at the same token, you're starting with this blank slate, and it's like, where do you go next? Like when you jump into a Twinmotion or a Lumion, it's like the steps are pretty easy. Load the model, apply materials, throw in a bunch of fucking trees and stuff, and then move on from there, right? Because the library's there. Here it's kind of like you said, you can do whatever you want, and so I mean I would assume, and this is kind of my question to you is, the ability to set up templates and whatnot, I'm assuming exists, right? So you're not necessarily starting with a blank slate every time you're in Unreal. A library template, maybe a material template, actions, whatever it is, I'm assuming is plausible, right?
And I'll show you a little bit of how that works. It's actually not templates so much as you just have the project. The project is the template, right? So I have a material palettes project that I load every time I start a new project, and I load all the assets into that new project if I want the materials from it. And we'll go through a little bit of that. You'll see how easy it is to load assets. You can save a project. So the project that we're going to be starting with is one that I started this project that it has some assets loaded into it already. So it's essentially a template, right? I can use this to create other VR projects in the future, preferably one that works consistently. But
awesome. Yeah, so let's run through the process. And by the way, I just saw I'm reading some of the comments, and a couple folks talking about what it is that they've used with VR. We got some Google Cardboard folks, which is pretty cool. And somebody did ask about the collaboration, which is pretty cool. The fact that it exists, and I know a lot of platforms are trying to figure this out, an easy, good way to do this, because of the pandemic as well, and the fact that you can be in VR but be in the same place type of thing. So I do know a lot of programs are trying to get that to work. So it's pretty cool that it exists. And then I also see Joe Buchek just mentioned that he asked me if I realized that I'm overlapping with the president's first public address, and I did not realize that. So I apologize to President Biden, but I did not plan my live stream based on his public address. So I'm sure
they're
you can
both
check.
Recorded.
Yeah, they're both recorded. So stay here, and then you can watch Joe later. I mean, President Biden. So come on.
You know what? This is also overlapping with my youngest son's first soccer practice.
Oh,
so
man.
there you go.
All right, well let's get into the Revit side of things then. So let's talk about the process and maybe run through and show folks an overview of how to get my lovely house here in Newtown, Connecticut, into Unreal.
Nice. Yeah, let's do it. So if you've been watching BIM After Dark, this is a model that you've probably seen. It's got information in it. It's got a building in it, and it's got a model in it. So I think that qualifies as a BIM package here. And what we're looking at here is the model that Jeff graciously sent me. Thank you very much. I figured it would be great to see this, since it's a project that your viewers would be familiar with, and it'd be good to see it go in.
I'm assuming they're probably at this point sick of it, so I should probably start using another model. But it is literally like consuming my life because it's happening outside right now. The construction
I'll
of it.
I'll send you some of my models. You can use that.
Okay, sounds good.
So real quick, let's talk about a couple of things that you need for this process to really work. You need a Revit model, right? Or you need an FBX model for Unreal. You cannot use DAE files or Collada files like you can in Lumion. In Unreal, it's FBX. There are some other formats that it brings in, but since that we're talking Autodesk, FBX is probably kind of the way to go. You need Revit, of course, or if you're using another package, you can use that. I think there are exporters for like 3D Studio, SketchUp, but we're not going to worry about those because this is the Revit Kids show. You need a Datasmith exporter. Datasmith is we'll say, package of exporters and importers that allows you to bring in, for the purposes of Revit, all the BIM information that's in your model. So you can see up here, I have Datasmith. It does export 3D views. You can synchronize. You can do a direct link with Unreal so that as you're changing things in Revit, it will update in Unreal. I think that's an experimental feature. I don't know that they haven't really worked out yet. I think 4.27 Unreal Engine 4.27 is going to have that upgraded a bit. And then I don't deal with connections, so I'm not even going to deal with what any of these are. So you also, obviously, if you're doing VR, you need a VR headset of any sort. Unreal Engine works with anything that works on OpenVR. So Oculus, you can use Google Cardboard, you can use Vive, anything that will work on OpenVR. Or Steam VR or Oculus. The Unreal has plugins for all those. You can work with that. And of course, you need a min spec machine, something that will run the minimum spec for all of those software and hardware, something from, I don't know, maybe Bimbox. Can probably get you go. I bet they even have a checkbox for I want to do VR with Revit, and they will set you up with that.
I'm sure. Somebody asked real quick before we move on, actually, is Datasmith free? So the Datasmith plugin, where do you get it? Is it free?
Okay.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah, so this is a really good question. Back in 2017, they introduced Datasmith to beta users, and they said, we're going to let this be free for a year. And a year went by and they said, you know what? I think we're going to keep developing it. And they've been developing it ever since. So yes, it is free. I don't know when they're going to say
free for now.
Yes. I think that there is a paid package. So the thing with the Unreal is it's free until you produce something like $100,000 worth of product with it a year. And then you have to pay something to Epic. I don't know what the price structure is because I'm a solo studio. I don't make $100,000 a year in product. So the Datasmith exporters and all that is free. And I think you can continue using it even after it's not free, but there's some stipulations on how that works in terms of, because I mean, once you have the code for it, you're just executing the code. So I don't know if they'll put it behind a subscription wall or something like that.
Right. Awesome. Well, thanks for the question.
Yeah.
That was from Barnada Franco. Thank you, Barnada.
Great. Yeah, thanks for the question. So it's really simple. You hit export 3D view and you set this up to where you're going to go. So I'm going to go to Revit to Unreal, which is where I do it. And then you set it, it saves it out as a uDatasmith file. I'm going to hit cancel, but you do that. It exports it. There aren't really any options. It just spits it out.
That's it. So it's not a .fbx it's creating. It's a .uDatasmith file.
Correct. And I'm actually I'm gonna correct myself here. Let's just see what happens. Let's do that one. Yeah, it just spits it out. There's no options. So it'll give you a message that says export successful. All right. And that's really all you do in Revit. There's some particulars with this that I'm going to talk about once we get into the Unreal, because it'll be clear to see once you get in there. So I mean, are there any questions about the Revit side of things? That's pretty simple. You have to model things in Revit.
Yeah, right. Model things in Revit and spit them out. I'm assuming similar rules apply as far as applying materials and being able to access them, or are the objects coming in object based, so you don't really care about what materials are applied?
Well, we'll get to that in a second. How does that? Does that work?
That's fine with me. Okay, that's all right. Okay, I'll wait.
So I will say though, material wise, if you've started using PBR materials in Revit, you're going to be better off.
So if you're using PBR materials, it's bringing the textures and all of that through. Then it's not even material name; it's bringing it all.
Yeah, it actually does it even if you don't use PBR materials. But it does work better if you do use PBR
because it has all those channels, and those are the channels and stuff that. So for those of you that don't know what PBR materials are, they're physically based rendered materials, and I'll post a link in the description of this video after we're done live to a tutorial I did on showing you how to create PBR materials in Revit. So good little area for me to plug. But I did create a tutorial,
Nice.
I think last year or something on it. So because I do know that that's a fairly new feature and not a lot of people really know about it. But it kind of
Yeah.
snuck in. It kind of snuck in there and didn't really get all the fanfare that I think it deserved, honestly.
Well, for good reasons, but
Well,
at least they're moving in that direction.
Yes. Right. Okay. Fair enough.
So I already have a project that we're going to work with, but I want to show you how we got there. So
Perfect.
you launch Unreal from the Epic launcher, just like you would your games. It's under Unreal Engine, same place you find Twinmotion. There's a ton of stuff here for learning the engine and whatnot. But if you just go here and you hit launch, you get this right here where you're creating a new project. And what we're going to start with is under architectural engineering and construction. I mean, this is how invested Epic is into us as an industry, right? We have our own starting template category. But if you hit next here, you can start with blank. If you're like master pro, ready to build everything from scratch, it works great. You can do ArcViz. If you have Microsoft HoloLens, there's one specifically for that, but we're starting from the collab viewer. I'm not actually going to hit next because that actually creates the project. But this is essentially what you get when you do this.
Awesome. So this is kind of a template then, right? I mean, it's a template. Is it more of a workspace, or does this actually have assets and some things in there that you can use?
This is the actual project. So
Awesome.
You can see I actually have assets already in here.
Cool.
There's blueprints are already in here.
Neat.
Yeah, everything that you need to run this out of the box is in this. This is actually like a Visual Studio project bundled into an Unreal Engine package. So if you have Visual Studio installed, you can actually open this solution in Visual Studio and do it by code instead of by blueprint and views in Unreal Engine. So yeah, it's not a workspace. You're actually opening the project just like you would open, I guess, a model in Revit. I guess is that kind of where you're going with that?
Yeah, exactly. It was.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think about because you think workspaces, maybe it was just giving me the tools, but it looks like it's giving me assets and not just like the windows I want or the toolkits I want. You know what I mean? It looks like it's actually building a little bit of a template for us to use, which is great.
Yeah, and I will say on that note, it is kind of a workspace because it does actually create physical files. So this actually corresponds to this folder structure here.
Okay.
So it is a workspace that kind of brings all of those assets into one place, but you're also only working within the realm of that project.
Awesome.
So if I open another project, it's that engine and interface for that specific project. So this is what we're going to start with. And I'm not going to go through how to use Unreal Engine. That would be beyond the scope of this.
We would need a few more live streams for that, right?
Well, hey, I guess maybe a month or so from now, we'll start that one. Awesome. But I'm going to go to here and I'm basically just going to duplicate this collaborative viewer. We're going to call it Revit Kid House. All right. And we're going to open that up. All right, we can see it's basically the same thing. Now, it gets a little tricky because there's some levels here, and it says that it's a sample level. If I actually delete stuff in here, it's going to delete it in the other one because it's kind of like I've XREF'd or linked. Boy, XREF'd, I'm going to be shunned here.
XREFing, and you're talking about Unreal? Whoa.
Yeah, I know. Maybe it's for those people who are watching who are like on the line. They're not sure if they want to use Revit or not. So I'm actually going to get rid of this level here. We're just going to remove selected. Yes, we're going to do that. All right. And we'll see that it is blank, which is perfect. This is exactly where we're going to start from. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to tell Unreal Engine how to bring that DataSmith object in. And I'm going to do that through what's called a data prep asset. So actually, first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you what it looks like to just bring it in. So there is a just import DataSmith. So we're going to do that. Revit to Unreal. There it is. You tell it where you want it. I'm going to tell it that I want it in, let's just put it in DataSmith for now. This one right here. I know that that's the wrong one, so I don't want to do it there. If you do just the straight DataSmith import, It gives you some options. You can uncheck like lights and cameras, animations, things like that. You can tell it certain options with your static meshes, so you can set up light map resolution. If you're a pure Revit user, this is probably like complete gibberish to you, but this is actually fairly important for Arc. If you're an ArcViz person, you're like, yeah, that's important. You need to set that something higher to 64. But you do, you can tell it to generate light map UVs and stuff like that, because believe it or not, Revit's geometry is not optimized for architectural visualization.
Shocking.
Believe it or not.
So by light maps, are you saying, is it bringing in the IES files or the light files?
No, it is actually bringing in the actual, it's creating light map UVs.
Got it. I see what you're saying. Okay. Yep.
Let's see here. I think I turned lights off. Yeah. So I can't actually find it. So there it is. So what's really interesting about this is I can select all these objects and I can move them individually, right? I can also, I have to find the, let's see here. There's a base point for the whole thing, so I can move that up and down and move it around. And this is great and all. I mean, everything comes in. I can come down here and I can look at the asset data, which you can see it has Datasmith information. So buried in all of this, you can see that I've got categories. I've got, whatever I selected as a generic model, it gives me all the information for it. So let's find something that Jeff put a lot of information in here. Let's see. There we go. So we know that this area is 118 square feet. I think this is a part. So element category is probably, nope, walls. There we go. There might be, there's some square footage, some takeoff information.
Yeah, maybe some cost in that one too, I think.
Their unit price $9.89 per square foot, I think. So
it ended up being more than $9.89, everyone.
I mean, it brings all the information in, and you can pull all of this information for anything in the project. But this is great and all, but I'm going to actually show you, so you can see now. These are the Revit materials, right? And well, this is Unreal. We have access to really nice materials. So why would we do this?
And I did not put PBR materials on this file, by the way.
And that's fine. We're Revit users. We only worry about what it looks like in the construction documents, right?
Yes. So I used Twinmotion and Enscape and all those other ones for it. So I never needed to, or I should say Twinmotion.
So I'm actually just going to delete the that model from our project here, which, by the way, this is not a great sell, having to watch me go through the world outliner to find everything. But once you get used to it, I won't say it's great, but you do eventually get used to it, and you understand how to get around inside of it. So what I'm actually going to do is we're going to come in here and we're going to use this data prep asset. Now, what's really cool about this is Unreal Engine gives you a way to essentially, I got to move the talking button here, to batch all of your stuff. So if you're doing material swaps or you want to create light maps at a certain resolution, you can do all that through the data prep asset. And this is something that's still under development. There's certain things that you can and can't do. So we're going to go through this. We're going to spend a little time in this. I'm telling it which Datasmith file I want to bring in. So it knows that it's pointing there. If you have a folder of Datasmith files, you can see that you can create a Datasmith folder import as well. So I'm going to tell it to import. And what we have essentially here is like a small little screen for us to preview everything. And you can select on objects and get that same Datasmith metadata that you saw earlier. So you can see that I've got this little preview here. And you might notice that the site didn't come in. That's because for this one, I actually hid the topo in Revit. So in Revit, anything that's visible in this is going to come in. So I think I actually just, hid category, applied that, and then I did my export from here. So keep that in mind. Let's see here. Where were we? This one. There we go. All right. So there's a couple things that you kind of need to do. One of them is you need to set, let's see here. You need to set the static lighting up. and it comes in as a default of 0.2. That sets a reasonable resolution for your light maps. And I'll show you what that means here in just a little bit. It's kind of hard to describe without going into what a light map and a UV is. And the other thing we're going to do is we're going to do a material swap by table. So if you do a material swap, essentially what you can do is if you select an object, you can see what materials, and it's grayed out, they're working on that, but you can see this one has gypsum wallboard, siding vertical, it has all the materials of all the assembly layers in Revit right here. And you can say, hey, I want to find all the gypsum and I want to replace it with actually something that's going to be more visible. Let's say clapboard. All right. And let's just say, I wonder if I have, let's see. Sure. We'll just say siding, wood siding. So I know already that the material for clapboard is this guy right here, right? So if I hit execute and we sit and wait, what you're going to see is that it's going to find, hopefully, this material and it's going to update it, which it didn't.
It might have a different name. Sorry.
There's clapboard. Oh, you know what? I bet I have to put asterisk. There you go. Clapboard. Let's see if that works. If it gets loud, my kids just got home. So
all good. So this environment right now, you're basically
there we go.
Oh, awesome. So you're basically you're mapping and doing all this work to the import before it even imports, right? So you're setting up data connections between materials and this thing, maybe categories and something else, right? So you're able to take that information from your model and use it to link to Unreal things, but you're doing it in this environment. So now it's kind of like the way it's going to be when you bring it in. So I guess my 100%. Question, and I think this was someone's question before, maybe this is a good time to ask it, is if you modify your model and you're not using one of these live syncs, is it just a matter of overriding that Datasmith file and this whole thing stays intact? Is that the process, or?
Yeah. So what's really cool about this data prep asset that we're creating is anytime we want to refresh the model, we just run this again. And what it does is it does this whole process of importing, executing this graph, this recipe that we're doing, and then committing it to the scene. Awesome. So this process that we're going through, you just do it again if you refresh something, and it does the whole thing over again. And that's what's nice about this data prep. This, like, I would not bring Datasmith in without this, because if you refresh it without this, you're going to lose all the materials that you changed, because it's just bringing the Datasmith information in. And when
if you were to use like an FBX file, if you use like an FBX file, that's what would happen, right? You would have, it would just be an import without these links that you're creating in theory. So then you're losing that. Is that?
It's an inconsistent yes. Sometimes you can refresh an FBX and the material substitutions will change. Sometimes it will not. And
awesome.
It's just like in Twinmotion, how you can merge things by material or merge things by family. Sometimes if you forget, or if the FBX is written out a certain way, I've had materials in Twinmotion disappear on me because
it is very inconsistent as well. I will tell you that is consistent between Unreal and Twinmotion, is that part is very inconsistent.
Yep. So
awesome. Okay, cool. So
that's
going.
What the Datasmith recipe is for, is making it consistent every time you bring it in. So there's a ton of materials in here. I don't want to go through and have to, do every single one of these. I don't want a recipe for every single one. So what I'm going to do instead is there's a really cool option called substitute material by table. And it just so happens that I already have a table for this. And we're going to open that and take a look. All right, so I've already gone through and told Unreal what to look for, and I've already picked materials for it. Awesome. So one of the things that I think, what we might have a problem with is I haven't brought assets in from another one, so it's not going to be able to find some of these materials. So we're going to have to do that real quick. Man, we're going to have to find out how easy it is to bring assets in. But I want to take a look at this real quick. Because essentially what I've done is I've told Unreal Engine, and each of these rows is handling a material in this asset, right? So I'm saying, hey, go look for glass anywhere in the model in materials, and then replace it with my material called realistic glazing. All right, so it's going to go look for objects. So I selected this door. It's going to go look for every object, and it's going to say in every element in this, does it have a material glass? If it does, it's going to replace it with that. Awesome. So before we hit execute here, I want to bring in some materials from another project, which I just so happen to have up. So this is another free project in Unreal. I'm going to show real quick where you can find that under Learn in the Epic Launcher. It's under Legacy Samples down at the bottom. And it's called Realistic Rendering. You download this, you create a project, and you have access to all of these material assets and physical assets that are really, really nice. And you have access to the lighting setup and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. This is a really incredible architectural visualization project to base your projects off of. But what I'm really interested in here is basically all the materials in this scene. So what would you do to transfer materials in Revit, right? You would go to transfer project standards, select the materials, and then you'd have to have both of them open and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. So what's really nice about this is I don't have to have the other project open. It just so happens that I do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the map that this is. So this is the room map. Okay, these are maps right here. And I'm going to right click this and I'm going to do asset actions and migrate. So I'm migrating this from one project to another. I will note that I do have this model is open in 4.25. The new model is 4.26. Just like Revit, you don't want to go backwards. You can, it will let you. Mm-hmm. But then when you get into the project, if you go backwards, you're going to get error messages that says, hey, guess what? You've done all this work, but I'm not going to let you save it because all these assets were made in a newer version.
Got it.
Which is not fun. So then all I'm going to do is I'm going to go find the folder for our project here, which is here. By the way, the reason this is in a root folder on my hard drive is because there is a very limited character length limitation in Unreal. So the content folder is kind of your main asset folder. So I'm going to go find that and I'm going to hit select folder. I've got some stuff already there. So I'm going to hit yes to all for everything. And essentially what this does is it takes all the assets that are dependent that this scene is dependent on, and it's basically packaging them up and moving them over. And the reason you can't do that manually is because everything is set up as what they call a U asset. Mm-hmm. So the textures are not actually images. It's a U asset. It's something that's been compiled by the engine. So now if I go back to our project, I can actually go and see that I have in this project now, that room folder, I can open this map in our project now and all those materials will be there. But what I'm actually interested in is now that I have that, my materials I'm going to save this and I'm going to reopen it and see. And hopefully all these are in there. So oak flooring. Oh yeah, here's the ones that didn't come in. So oak flooring, I know that this is wood floor material instance. Yep, that one right there. And then gypsum is, by the way, the searching in Unreal Engine is incredible.
It looks like, yeah. I mean, it's pretty much like a right-click search in Dynamo, right? It just looks like you're just clicking and searching, and it's diving all around. That's awesome.
And what's really nice is everything's color-coded. So if I hit this bar here, it knows that it's looking for things that are of the same color that will plug into this node. Mm-hmm. So it's not looking through all the content. It's only looking through things that will go into this material. Which is really nice. So this is wall paint interior. Let's see here. I think it's just that one right there. All right, so I think we're good here. So I'm going to hit save on this, and we're going to go back to our data prep asset, and I'm going to hit execute. And now we're going to wait. So essentially what's happening is it's executing this recipe right now. Mm-hmm.
So other than so you showed materials, you showed the static lighting or the light maps. So what other kind of things can you do in this data prep thing? Are you
Great question, Jeff.
what? Just some examples. Maybe give users some or viewers some examples of what else you can do in here, because I'm intrigued by this thing for sure.
Yes. So very specifically, I'm going to show you real quick. So if you're going to do a walkthrough, think about if you're going to walk through a building, what do you want to have? A floor, right? You want to walk on a floor.
Of course.
So if you remember from the demo, there was a fly option, but then there was a walk option. Well, in Unreal, Unreal has to have something for you to actually walk on. So if I look at player collisions, you can see the only thing to collide with right now is this purple base, which is actually in the preview. So what I actually want to do is create some collisions here for us to walk on. Well, how do I do that? Aside from going through, I can create collisions manually by going through and doing this, but I don't want to do that manually because there's tons of floors in here. So what I want to do is I'm going to use the recipe here to look for metadata, which is the Datasmith stuff. And what I can do is just to check, I have this floor selected right here. We're going to come down here and you're going to have to squint to see it. I promise it's there. But we can see main element category is the key that we're looking for. All right. So the key is element category. Okay. And the value we're looking for is floors. Okay. Floors. All right. So this is a search. This is like filters in Revit.
Yep.
Right.
Perfect.
So this is basically creating a bucket to put everything that fits this filter criteria into. And it's going to pass that down to the next thing. Well, what's the next thing I want to do? I want to create a collision. So I'm going to search for collision. All right. I can create a simple collision or a convex collision. I'm going to pick convex for now. There's a very specific reason that I don't want to get into, but it's basically the reason is it works. So let's say you want to do that with walls. Well, you can do that with category walls. Let's say you want to plug in information. You want to set metadata information for roofs or something like that. You can do that. You remember earlier we were talking about things that don't work very well in Revit. Or not from Revit to Unreal. One of them is parts. And Jeff, I'm sorry, you've got a lot of parts, and you did it the right way.
I do have a few
parts. You parted it out and you demoed those assembly pieces.
Yeah,
and that's perfect.
I don't know if it was the right way, but it worked. I mean, it's a way.
If it worked for you, then it's the right way. That's the way Revit works, right? If it works for you, then you've done it the right way. Right. But parts, unfortunately, they don't work with collisions yet. It's something that I know that they're working with. So keep that in mind. So I actually exported, except I don't see that piece there. So I don't know. I don't know. We'll see how that works. So I'm going to hit execute now. Actually, we're going to go to that player collision because that's what we were doing, right? We're trying to create floors that collide. So I'm going to hit execute and it's doing the same thing. It's basically, this is the preview, right? I'm executing the recipe. We're setting up the static lighting. We're setting up the materials by the table, and then we're setting collisions. So you can see now I've got collisions that I can do. Oh, and actually you see we're missing one right here. If you're familiar with your house, which is a part, right? There's a part, there's a floor right there. So what I actually need to do is I need to copy these. So we're going to copy this. Let's see here. Actually, I can just duplicate that. And just trust me on this, folks. It's called the element original category.
I will tell everyone from experience that in general, not just with Unreal, but in general, downstream uses of parts is not a great thing. Like it's a lot of programs downstream uses parts blow up and do different things.
It's an art form. We'll say it's an art form.
It's an art form, yes. So it's unfortunate because they were created, I think, in mind with like contractors in mind, right? Being able to slice and dice objects and be able to export, a floor without actually slicing it in the architectural side of it. But meanwhile, the downstream uses of that slice and diced object can be crazy complicated or just simply not work.
So we can see that this is a part. I'm going to isolate this. This is a part in the Revit model. You see how thin this is? Jeff, you did great. That's a really thin part. That's all I need to collide with, right? Well, this is the problem you have in Unreal. I mean, you can see how thick that piece is right there. Okay, so there's some things that I'm going to have to fix, and we'll fix it here in just a little bit. So there we go. We have some collisions. We've got some material changes. The options are limitless here and what you can do. But I'm going to go ahead and commit this. So we have a model. in our map that we have. And this is going to take a second. So it'll disappear from here. It'll freak you out the first time you do it. You'll be thinking, what did I do wrong? Well, all it did is it spit everything out of the data prep asset and into the map that you're actually using. So there we go. That's how we know it's done. So there we go. There's our deal here. We can do the same thing. We can look and see player collisions. There we go. We got that. What I am going to do is just to show you this guy right here. So I need this to be thinner. Otherwise it's really going to be jacked up. So what you can do is you can come in here and open the mesh. So this is the mesh for just that floor. Mm-hmm. And we're going to say, well, okay, let's set complex collisions. And we want to tell it that.
So there's an individual mesh editor for any object that comes in?
Yes. And you can actually edit the meshes in here. So I'm going to save this. I told it basically I want to use that complex collision as the collision in our project. So now when I come back to Unreal Engine and I do player collision, I got something else in there.
The bottom part of the floor.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, there we go.
There it is.
So I just deleted that bottom part there. So there we go. So we have player collisions. All right. Now I'm using unlit mode here. I'm going to move on to adding the rest of the stuff in.
Yeah, let's do it.
Any questions?
There was a couple questions. First was, is the furniture brought in from Revit currently in the scene? And I believe it was the Revit furniture, right?
Yep. There it is.
Yeah. So that's all Revit furniture.
So I do want to talk. Someone asked about materials earlier. I do want to talk about materials real quick because the way that Revit or Unreal Engine does this is really fascinating, actually. So it creates what is called a Revit master material and then creates instances of that material to make the material. So you can see Unreal Engine had no idea how to handle this material. So it made a sofa material, which is what it's called in Revit. Mm-hmm. But if I open this, we can see it probably looks nothing like what it did. And you'll see that it's single-sided. All the materials in Unreal are single-sided. You can change that. But you can see there's a ton, of options over here. And you can see that the parent material is Revit Master. Get ready for you people who are not PBR or node material shader people. Just sit back and enjoy the show. This is a material structure in Unreal Engine. This is a really complex one. So it has different, so you can see the basic attributes here are, base color, metallic, specular roughness, all these things that Revit wants us to start using, but you haven't had to use until recently. And there's some other stuff. By the way, it uses normal maps, not bump maps. I think Revit still uses bump maps, even with the PBRs. I could be wrong. Somebody in the comments is going to correct me on that. But I know before PBR, it used black and white bump maps, not normal maps. These are different. Bump only goes in one direction. Normal goes in and out for your color, for the way the image works. But I'm not going to get into this. Obviously, we cannot cover this in what little time we have left. If we have time left, I don't know.
We're running. We're hitting the clock, but everyone's into it. So let's.
Okay.
Let's at least get through the content you wanted to, as far as the materials, and letting everyone know.
The point. Yeah, the point here is that there is a material made for every material that comes out of Revit, and you can edit every single one of them. Mm-hmm. Clearly, this is why I showed you swapping materials out being beneficial, right. Because you don't want to have to deal with this.
So if you swap it out to a Unreal material, you're using only the Unreal material now, and you're ignoring, or it's not doing that complex, crazy map that Unreal tries to do to figure out what the hell Revit's doing.
Exactly. So what I can actually do is there's a nice fabric, a curtain material. So let's see if I look for a curtain. There's a curtain material. That's nice. So we can drop that on there, and boom, there's the new material on that static mesh. Mm-hmm. Another thing that's nice is I can actually go find. There were some nice couches in the room. So there's a nice couch static mesh, okay, which is the mesh geometry. So I can actually say, by the way, this is just an actor that holds all these assets, right?
Mm-hmm.
So all I have to do is drag this over here, and I've got a new,
Mm.
new mesh on top of that, and you can see it brought in its own textures as well.
Awesome. So
So
that's just
that's a
that's a replaced object basically is what that's doing. So you can
exactly.
flip it out. Awesome.
Speaking of that room rendering, I'm just going to use all the lighting from this. Is that okay with you, Jeff?
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm just gonna use all the lighting from this. So essentially, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to bring in these are processing boxes, okay, that basically tells Unreal Engine. You can see there's a J.J. Abrams special lens flare bloom.
Oh yeah.
Going on. So I'm going to bring that in, and I'm also going to bring in what's called atmospheric fog, which kind of gives the space a little bit of atmospheric volume.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also going to find a direct light, I believe is one of the things that is in here. Direct light. And I'm basically going to copy this and paste it into my new project. And the only reason that this is going to work is because I've already migrated everything into this project. So I'm actually copy pasting from different projects.
Because the assets exist from that migration.
Exactly. So I'm going to go to lit mode so you can see what the difference is. And you can ignore all these preview stickers that are everywhere. We'll get to that in a second. So I'm just going to Control V. All right. And you can see I've got J.J. Abrams showing up already.
There we go.
I'm going to make sure that my box, the house, is inside the box because that tells Unreal Engine this is the area. So you can see when I go outside the box, the lighting changes a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So it's essentially giving the camera different properties when I'm inside that box. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go and grab, let's see here. I have another map that, let's be sure we save all that has my mountain scene. So we're going to grab that real quick.
So someone had a great question actually.
Yeah.
Jacob asked, can you replace the Revit families with actors like you just did through the data prep process?
Yes.
Yes,
you can.
I had a feeling that was a yes, but I wanted you to answer it because that's really cool, right? So you can set up essentially replacement objects for your scenes on the load, which is pretty neat, right? If you have a couch that's really nice in Unreal, you can just put a placeholder, even a box that looks like crap in Revit, but it's there and it looks good in plans, for example. But then it flips out to this beautiful Unreal, object or mesh, which is pretty neat.
And even more importantly, let's say that you have a asset in Unreal Engine that's specifically made for like an opening door that has the pivot and the revolve and everything set up right. Mm-hmm. You can swap those objects out for the doors in Revit, and then you can actually have that set up to be revolving doors. So you click on a button and the door opens so you can walk through it, things like that. Light switch assets that have blueprints already set up for turning lights on and off. You can set that up as well. So that's what that recipe is for. And I'll tell you what, that data prep asset has gone through many, many evolutions and it's probably still being revised. So it's to the point where like I had a bunch of stuff already set up and I had to rebuild it because it's evolved to a certain point. Yeah. So we're going to use this mountain scene. It might look a little bit familiar to you, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to grab the atmospheric, the skylight, and I think, actually, you know what? I don't even have to do that. Why'd you guys let me do that? I didn't have to do that.
Because this is all extremely foreign to me.
Yes. So this is the map that I'm going to bring in, but instead of copying and pasting, what I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to bring it in as a level. So I've got these levels over here, and this is like linking a project in, right? So I'm going to hit add existing. There's my landscape map. I'm going to hit open. All right, and then I get to zoom way out. It looks like I brought in the city skyscape, city backdrop from the other project. So you can see, so now my mountains are on top of everything, right? So how do I get that up there? Well, we get to go back up here to our DataSmith asset, right? And I'm actually going to turn our mountains off. And I'm just going to select everything that's right here and then turn that back on. I'm going to try that again. I'm going to select this stuff And then I need to bring just the actor. If you're moving Datasmith stuff, you only want to bring the asset scene actor. Otherwise, you're going to be moving things in weird ways, and it breaks everything. So we're going to bring this up to on top of our mountain. We're just going to find a spot that looks kind of cozy. And we're going to rotate it so you've got a nice view of the lake.
Oh, beautiful.
Right, there's the lake right there.
That would be a nice view. I definitely don't have that
view. Hope you have a good civil engineer. That's all I'm. We're gonna come back inside here real quick, and everything's really bright. You know, we can fix that though, because one thing we haven't done yet is baked our lighting. So I'm going to tell it to bake the lighting, and while it's baking, we're going to have time to ask or answer some questions that might be coming up while that's doing that. So I'm actually going to build the navigation and the lighting at the same time. So here it's adding it, and then we're going to hit build. And one thing I do like about Unreal Engine is that it has a watch the paint dry feature. So it uses something called Swarm Agent to, well, I thought I was going to build, oh, you know what? I got to change this setting real quick. World settings, light mass. Boom. Now let's try it. There it is. All right. So I'm going to leave this up on the screen while it's going, but this is essentially the watching the paint dry feature in the Unreal Engine.
Awesome. All right. So while that's going, so I think this actually, there's a couple questions. I think one of them may be answered by what you're building right now. But the first one, I think, was Joe. I missed it up top. But I guess I'm going to ask it a little different than he did. But he asked, are there any manufacturers providing textures and products? So I guess I think the more global question to that is, asset libraries, what do you have to choose from as far as Unreal is concerned?
Okay. So I'm really glad you asked that, because I was reminded today that if you have an Epic account, and I think if you have an Epic Games account, you just have access to this, but this is the Megascans Quixel library. And so, I mean, boom, here's, these are all free.
Yep.
Right? That you can just download and put in. Actually, you can put these in Twinmotion too, by the way. Materials. So where's the surfaces, materials? Am I just missing materials here? I'm not sure where those materials are, but like I know that's like stacked stone. By the way, if I'm lagging, it's because I'm building the light map.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, you're building a light map. Yeah. So other than Quixel is a great resource, and especially for using Unreal or a program that runs on Unreal. But I guess to further the question, I would say, so if you find I don't know, maybe a TurboSquid model or other models from other sort, maybe you have a 3D Max model from something or whatever it may be. I assume you would just bring those in whatever that method asked for, and they're usable, right? I mean, I would imagine if you had an FBX from TurboSquid, for example, that would probably come in pretty good, right?
Yes, yeah. So and SketchUp models too. So if you can find an FBX converter or bring it into Revit and export it out through Datasmith, you could do it that way as well. As long as you can get a physical model and get it converted to FBX, you're good.
Awesome. It looks like Pierre Felix is on the chat, guys. He actually works at Epic.
Hey, Pierre.
I know Pierre, and he's been working on the Revit to Unreal and also the Twinmotion to Unreal. The Twinmotion to Unreal workflow too. So I'm sure he'll be able to jump in on some of the questions that maybe I've been ignoring because I don't necessarily want to answer. So thanks for jumping in, Pierre.
While Pierre, since Pierre's on, I have to give a massive shout out to Antoine, who also works at Epic, who has let me interrupt him during his gameplay sessions at night to try to figure out, not only now, but when I was originally learning, figuring this stuff out. If you're on Discord, there's an Unreal Slackers Discord channel where Epic employees are pretty heavily involved, and they will help you get through things. And the community is amazing. The assets that are available are amazing. And it's really why I've stuck with Epic versus going back to Unity for my engine needs.
Mm-hmm. So great point there, and Pierre, thanks for joining us. I will say that
yes, thank you so much, Pierre.
Epic has been very good with reaching out to the AEC industry, and they have been great with support and also asking for our feedback, which is phenomenal. I think what you're showing now goes back to a question that I don't remember who had it. Sorry. Maybe Brad had it. Sorry if I lost it. But it was basically how to make it not look gamey, right? And so the realism side of it. And I think what you're showing here, and you could talk about it a little more, is baking the scene, and it is going to get you to that point. But all the stuff you just did in general, as you can see now, look at the scene compared to before. This is how you start getting more realism and less gamey, I guess.
Yeah,
is that
100%? And you can see, like we were talking about light map UVs and things like that earlier, so you can see the resolution of the shadow. There's multiple factors here, but one of the things that really makes this is you can see that this light map resolution is like 184. Well, if I make this 512, the shadows are going to be different on this. They're going to be and it's not immediate. I have to rebuild it in order to show it. But this is what we were talking about with geometry optimization in Revit. The people at Epic have worked tirelessly to try to make the geometry that comes in from Revit work. Revit is not an ArcViz software, and the modeling engine does not create geometry that's optimized for it. So you can see, like, you get these seams on the edges of where walls come together. Yeah. Like, guys, if you want to see, and this isn't a reflection of bad modeling, right? Because it's good modeling for what we need it for. But
those walls are definitely in line. I could tell you that for sure. Those are in line.
Exactly. If you want to see like how badly your model is optimized for ArcViz, just bring it into Unreal.
So maybe real quickly, can you just launch this full screen so everyone can see that sort of interior scene and just get a sense of it? Because I think with all the bars and stuff, it's and the fact that we're ultra wide and whatnot.
Let's see.
Just to sort of bring it home. There we go. So other than the lens flare in your face, that's a heavy duty lens flare. I mean, you could see the reflections, the lighting. It looks nice. It's you could see with enough time and understanding, tweaking these materials and whatnot, you can get some phenomenal results from this.
I mean, guys, this is 45 minutes worth of work.
On a model that you didn't create while we're doing it live.
I'm willing to bet that you could mop this floor for 45 minutes in real life and not get it that shiny.
Awesome. Great. Sweet. Well, we're hitting the end here, so I think we could wrap it up. I think in general, maybe clearly people are interested in this. There's been tons of comments, and we spent time on the Revit to Unreal workflow, but maybe in the future we'll have you back and just talk a little bit more about the Unreal side of it and the tweaks to get, from the blank slate we've been talking about to a photorealistic, real-time environment. I think that could be maybe the part 2 of this discussion.
Yeah,
I don't know how you feel about that, Carl.
I mean, yeah, we could do that for sure. I'm awesome. Not really, I don't do a lot of photorealism stuff. Outside of Twinmotion. But I'm happy to explore that. I will say
the closest you'll get in this environment. How about that?
There are some really great resources at, let's see here, learn.unrealengine.com. And I think Jeff's going to have the link for that below. And if you're a gamer, right, you get little tags and badges for going through their courses. But all the stuff that I went through here was basically taking lessons from those courses and applying them to this. So there's creating interior ArcViz, creating VR walkthroughs, creating exterior ArcViz, all kinds of stuff. And not just for ArcViz, but also learning the engine in general, which is really great as well. So.
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, any final words, Carl, before we wrap up? I want to thank you for joining us. This has been awesome. People have been loving it. Clearly, this is something that I think the Revit world was looking for. Just some info on and clarity on what Unreal is, but also what it would take to get a model into Unreal usable. So I appreciate that. Where can people find you when they leave here?
Oh boy. Well, believe it or not, I also have a YouTube channel. It's just called Creative Things.
Awesome.
And I stream my work live. So like as I'm working on clients' projects. And that's pretty much it. My website is basically my old blog, creativethings.com. It's not
Awesome.
CREAT, it's CRE8.
Got it.
IDE.
I will make sure to link.
Things.
I will make sure to link all of that below in the description and in the blog post tomorrow at therevitkid.com. Carl, thank you for joining me. This has been awesome. Any last words to the Revit Kid audience?
Twitter is Creative Things as well. You can find me there as well. Thank you so much, Jeff, for having me on.
What about Revit Forum?
Yes, you can find it. It's actually, I think it's still Architect, RKITECT.
Awesome.
Revit Forum. Yeah.
I laugh at that because that's sort of the connection we didn't know we had until recently.
Yeah.
Was his username on Revit Forum I recognized on RFO. So pretty cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So everyone, thank you guys for joining us today. I really appreciate it. This has been fun. I'll see you guys next week. Thank you, BIMBox, for sponsoring it. Thank you, Carl, for joining me. You guys have been amazing. Now you can go watch Joe Biden's address. I'll probably go watch it too. With that, I want to bid everyone adieu. Have a great weekend. The weather's supposed to be beautiful, at least for the next couple of days up here. So enjoy it while you can and stay safe. And I'll talk to everyone soon. See you later.
Here.